Hey guys, what's going on? It's Clever Techie, and in this video, I'm going to explain what is JavaScript. Okay, so JavaScript is designed to manipulate something called Document Object Model, DOM. It executes on the client side in a client's web browser. It runs inside of a sandbox for security, and it's a fully featured programming language for a web browser. JavaScript is not a scripting language, despite its name, and JavaScript is not an Oracle's Java, so the name JavaScript is a little bit misleading indeed. Okay, so here we have an example of a very simple web page, and in terms of document object model, you can think of a web page itself as a document. So if you look here in the document object model chart, you can see that the document, which is the whole page that the client is viewing in the browser, is at the very top of the hierarchy. Next, if you look here in the view source, we got all the HTML elements which make up this web page that the user is viewing. So all these HTML elements make up our document object model. So basically, document object model is just a fancy way of saying elements on a web page. Alright, so let's look at the document object model in more detail. So we got the document, which is a page at the very top, and then underneath we got a root element, which is HTML. So this is like the king element of all the other elements. And then that root element branches out like a tree root into other sub-elements like the head, body, h1, a, title, and a bunch of other elements that a web page might have. We also have an attribute, which is an attribute of an a element, which is why this box is branching out from the a element, to let you guys know that this is a part of the a element. And then we also have text, which is part of the title element. We also have text, which is part of the a element, and we have the text of the header, which is part of the h1 element. And all of that is reflected here as well. So we got a title as element, we got a text, my title as the text of that element, we got my header as the text of the h1 element, and we got an attribute href as well as the text of that link of the a element. So I hope you guys understand what the document object model is now. It's a bunch of elements on a web page, which is JavaScript is designed to manipulate. So this is the main job of the JavaScript, is to manipulate document object model, which are elements on a web page. Alright, so let's go ahead and continue here. So it also executes on the client side, in the client's web browser. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull up a chart here of HTTP protocol, and this is part of my REST API video that I highly recommend if you guys haven't seen it yet. So when the client's computer makes a request to the server is where all the data about the web page is stored. So the server processes the client's request, and then it responds with HTML, CSS, images, and also JavaScript. So JavaScript is sent directly to the client's web browser, from which the client can then execute JavaScript. And so that is what's meant for the JavaScript to be executed from the client side, unlike other programming backside programming languages like PHP. So if we actually view source on the client's web browser, we can literally see this JavaScript that I have as an example down here. And I'll give you guys an example in just a minute. So let's just go back to the JavaScript part here. So JavaScript also runs inside of a sandbox for security, and that just means that JavaScript has a scope, so it's like a limitation, so that it doesn't go outside of the boundaries of the web browser and it doesn't mess up client's computer. However, you should still be careful when accessing some of the websites, because some of them might have malicious JavaScript designed to go outside of the sandbox and manipulate your computer's private data. So be careful which websites you access. Okay, so and the last thing, JavaScript is a fully featured programming language for a web browser, which is self-explanatory. Okay, so now that we understand what JavaScript is for and what it is, let me just give you guys a quick example. So this is a web page source code that we just looked at with just simple HTML elements, and now we're gonna write some JavaScript to modify the header. Okay, so we start out by including JavaScript code inside of the script tags like this. And then we can, suppose we wanted to modify this part of the header. So it's just if I go here, so it's just the text of the header element on our web page. So if we quickly go back to the chart here, H1 is underneath a document element. So we write document dot get element by ID. So document, which is the page, and then get element by ID is a built-in JavaScript function. So then we can say get element by ID, and the ID of the element that we're modifying, which is H1. So H1's got an ID of H1, and that's how we can get to that element with JavaScript. And next, to get to the text part, so we're going from document to H1, and now we're going to the text. And in order to get to the text, we write inner HTML. And then we can change it. We can say something else like, OMG, I just changed my header text. Like that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and view this in the browser. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh the page. And voila, we got OMG, I just changed my header text. And if we go here, now you can see here that we actually have the JavaScript itself, and we can view the actual code. So that's exactly what it means for the code to be processed and executed on the client side. Okay, so let's do something else here. Let's go ahead and create a function out of this. So we can say function change, and this is the same way that we would create a function in PHP. So you guys should be familiar with this. And then we can create a button. And we can say onClick, and onClick is a JavaScript event. So event is something that happens, some kind of action that happens inside the document object model. So in this case, the button element is having an onClick event, which means a user is literally clicking on the button. And onClick, we can say change and call our function. Let's also add button text and say change H1 text, or change header text. Alright, so let's go ahead and see what happens now. So we got the original header, and now we have a button, and if we click on the button, bam, we have just changed our header text with a click of a button. Another thing that's really popular in the introductory JavaScript tutorials is alert box. So I'm gonna give you guys an example here. Welcome to my awesome website. So alert is a built-in JavaScript function, and then It's designed to create a message box. So if we go to the page, refresh, now we get a message pop-up box that says welcome to my awesome website. And once again, if you go to view source, you can see that all the JavaScript that we can view all the JavaScript on in the view source. And then once the button is pressed, the code gets executed on the client side. So that's exactly what it means for the code to be executed on the client side, like it states here, in case that wasn't clear in the beginning. Alright, so once again, JavaScript manipulates document object model, which are the elements on the page. It executes on the client side, on the client's computer. It runs inside of a sandbox for security purposes so that the code doesn't mess up user's computer. And it's a fully featured programming language for a web browser. JavaScript is not a scripting language, and it's not an Oracle's Java. Alright guys, so this was a really basic introduction explaining just what is JavaScript. And in the next video, I also want to cover what is Ajax, what is jQuery, what is AngularJS, and what is Node.js. And then I'm also going to create one video after that comparing and reviewing all these technologies so it becomes really clear what they are. And from that point, we can start moving on to exploring all these technologies in depth. Alright, so I hope you liked this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Clever Techie out.